Rev up your engines!
Now, if you know anything about the car industry, August is generally one of the highest months of people buying vehicles. But with Ford, it has plummeted. Some of it's the chips. They don't have a big inventory, so they're selling less. They have less to sell. And of course, with less supply and bigger demand, they're actually raising the prices. They're marking them up more. And then people are just walking. I've had many customers come here and say, Scotty, I was going to buy a new car, but man, they just raised the prices. Heck, I'll drive my old one for a while. People just think they can charge whatever they want forever. Well, eventually people are going to say, enough of this. I don't need a new vehicle right now. I'm going to drive my old one, which is kind of interesting because it's now at the all-time high of the length that people are keeping their cars. It's well over 10 years. When I was young, 4 or 5 years. Now, people are keeping them 10, 15, 20 years. They're keeping them longer. And if they keep raising the prices of the new ones, people are going to say, I don't need to buy one. I'll keep my old one. To give you an example, the dealers now only have 942,000 cars for sale. You might think that's a lot, but roughly it's 3 million vehicles they have for sale. So, of course, they're just taking advantage of a spot market and they're charging more for what they have. They really don't care about their clientele, and I think it serves them right that people are buying less vehicles now. I don't blame them. They still got 942,000 for sale. It's not like they don't have any, right? But they're taking it to jack it up so they can continue to make a profit by charging more per car since they're selling less cars. Not a smart move in the long run. Honda and Subaru also showed double-digit losses in sales. Toyota and Hyundai and Volvo have increased sales from the previous year. So, everybody's not doing it. And bad news for Ford. The sales of F-150s declined 22.5%. That's where Ford gets the majority of its profit. Like I say, if a customer says I was going to buy a new Ford truck, they wanted too much money, I said, the heck with it, I'll keep my old one longer. They think that they control the market. They don't control the market. It's an open market. Toyota, Hyundai, Volvo, they're selling more cars. Ford, selling less. Maybe they should learn a lesson from this. Oh, really? Says Scotty, what do you think of Optima batteries? Optima are those spiral batteries. If you know anything about physics, spiral is the most efficient use of space. That's why snails have spiral shells. The original Optima batteries were made like in Wisconsin, someplace in the United States up north, right? They were great batteries. They could last for 10 years. They held their charge more. A lot of guys were buying them for their boats because they were sick of buying a battery every 6 months for their boats, and they were putting these Optima batteries in, right? But, and this is a gigantic but, when they had an American factory, they said, well, we got to open a factory in Mexico because we can't make enough batteries here in the United States, but we're only going to sell the Mexican-made batteries to the rest of the world. Well, guess what? That's where they make them all now, and the ones in the United States, the quality has gone, pfft. I talked to one of my friends at an AutoZone, and I said, what about those Optima? And he said, I agree with you 100%, Scott. He says, we used to have no returns on the Optimas. Now we get returns on them all the time. The quality control in Mexico is garbage. They don't last as long. They still charge a ton of money. Most of those batteries are $200, $250 a piece. But I wouldn't buy one these days because when they moved all that stuff to Mexico, went their quality. And they're just like everything else. They're living on a name. They're kind of like Cadillac. The Cadillac of cars. Yeah, in the 1940s and 50s and 60s, but not anymore. The same thing with those Optima batteries. I wouldn't buy one. David Finland said, what's the worst car of the last 20 years in the United States? I'm going to go a little further back because it might be closer to 30 years. Chrysler sold this ridiculous car. That's when they owned Maserati. And I believed it was called Chrysler TC by Maserati. It was the biggest pile of crap. Then the most hilarious thing, I've never seen this before. It was turbocharged, obviously, but it was only a 4-cylinder engine. But out the back, it had 2 big exhaust pipes, right? Well, the first time I worked one, I jacked it up and I looked under. Well, the one exhaust pipe went to a muffler. The other exhaust pipe just ended nowhere. It wasn't connected to anything. They just put a fake second one on to make it look like it had dual exhaust. Now, they wouldn't have fooled anybody up north in the winter because they'd see steam was coming out of the right side, but nothing on the left because the left pipe wasn't even connected. But those were the biggest pieces of crap anybody ever made. I mean, they were far worse than the Edsels, far worse than Fiats. Those were rolling piles of junk. So, you ever see a Chrysler TC by Maserati, don't buy it. Unless you got a museum and you want to stick it in there and say, worst car ever built. Wesley Miller says, Scotty, I'm looking to buy a 2015 Honda Civic with 98,000 kilometers for my first car. Any thoughts? 98,000 kilometers, what's that, like 60,000 miles or something? That's nothing. Go 300,000 or 400,000 miles. Like I always say, you never want to buy it sight unseen. Pay a good mechanic to check it out. Cars get wrecked, flooded, stolen. All kinds of things can go wrong. Normally, nothing will be wrong with a Honda Civic that's got that small amount of miles. But it could be wrecked, flooded, stolen, who knows? Have a mechanic check it out before you buy. Don't trust those stupid stuff like Carfax. You read them, the fine print. It'll say, this car has not been in an accident according to all the information. If you're buying a car from somebody and they didn't have collision and it got wrecked and they paid cash to get it fixed, there's no record of it being fixed. Many cars come to me here that I check out for my customers and not to buy used. Many of them were wrecked and the Carfax says they were never wrecked. So some of them were even totaled a couple of times and refixed and it said they'd never been wrecked. So I wouldn't trust any of that stuff. Mark Vegas said, Scotty, what do you think of a GM Pontiac Vibe? Should I even consider it, even though it's really a Toyota Matrix? Well, the Matrices are excellent. I've got one. They just run forever, right? Now, the Pontiac Vibe is basically a Matrix. Some of the body panels and stuff's different, but the engine, transmission, all the brakes, all that crap is Toyota. Some of them might have an AC Delco alternator, but those are okay alternators. They're not quite as well, but you can get them a lot cheaper than a Matrix. You price a Matrix versus a Vibe. The Vibe will probably cost thousands less, and it can still last a really long time. Checks out good with a mechanic. Hey, go ahead and buy it. Tegan Silva says, have you ever ridden on a Toyota Hilux? Heck, I've worked on them. I worked on a Toyota Hilux, sir, from Japan. It was a diesel engine with 98 horsepower, and man, that thing was slow. But I've also worked on them that had regular gasoline engines, and they were fast enough. They were work trucks and stuff. The rest of the world has them all the time. And they do put bigger diesel engines in, but this was a small one. Man, it was slow as could be. But yeah, they're excellent vehicles. It's just, my advice is don't buy a diesel version in the United States. You're going to have one heck of a time finding anybody who's going to work on it and anyone who can get parts for it. Because even when I was working on one, I went to my all data system and it has no information on it because they never imported those with diesel engines to the United States and I couldn't get any data and I had to go through the internet. It was a real hassle finding information. So be leery about buying a diesel one in the United States. P.R. Fell says, Scotty, what do you think of the 2019 Hyundai Electric Kona versus the 2018 BMW i3 for 150-mile commute? Okay, you definitely want the Hyundai. They don't cost what the BMWs do. I believe BMW stopped making the i3. They had very bad sales on it. BMW repairs are, and you're talking about a BMW electric car, you're going to go even higher with that. I would never buy an electric BMW, at least at the prices that they have now, unless they turn tail and start making small ones. Like if you saw after World War II, BMW made those little Zettas that had the three-wheel that looked like a Messerschmitt because the Messerschmitt guys were some of the guys that designed it. And those are collector's items now, but they were slow. BMW went back to making that kind of stuff? Maybe, but I don't think they ever will make small cars like that again. Shane says, what's the best $300 scan tool? Well, I gotta say, for $300, I've shown it before. It's an Innova. INNOVA scan tool that's $300. And for $300, it blows me away. It does Mode 6 data, does all kinds of stuff. Yeah, there's scanners there a lot better. I just got a big scanner. If you've watched my late videos, it's huge. It's like this big, does all kinds of stuff. And that came from ThinkTool. It's their new top-of-the-line Pro. But that thing's like $6,000. It does a lot more than the $300 one, yes. But for people who are fixing their own cars, that $300 Innova is pretty good. Scoop Dog says, Scotty, what do you think of the 6.4-liter Hemi? I know Dodge makes junk, but how about the motor? They're Hemi motors, which was radical like 80 years ago. And they're push-rod engines. They're not overhead cam engines. They're old-fashioned push-rod engines. Now, they go like stink. I drove one the other day that had 702 horsepower. They are screaming vehicles. They get horrendous gas mileage. Some of those Hemis, they put the cam, since they're just push-rod engine, the cam's not on the top, not overhead cam, it's in the middle. They move the cam higher from the crankshaft to get more power. But then the splashing at idle from the camshaft oil doesn't reach the cams, and a lot of them eat up cams, which is a very expensive job. If you're ever thinking about buying one of those Dodges with a Hemi, you have a mechanic like me check the cam out before you buy it, because if the cam's going out, you don't want to buy that thing. They can last a while, but almost all the ones I've ever seen had like 120, 150,000. The cams were worn out on them, and that's a minimum of $5,000 rebuilding one of those with a cam. They're such complex engines. Araceli and Angel Lopez says, what do you think of the old Mercedes 300E? The 300Es weren't bad cars. The original 300Es, they were straight 6-cylinder engines, which are smooth. They had enough power in them, and those are relatively luxurious cars, but they weren't outrageously expensive like the S-Class Mercedes. And all the ones I ever saw were made in Germany. The ones I've worked on, they weren't made somewhere else. And the ones made in Germany are better made. That's just the way that it is. You know, you're buying an old Mercedes, you can be buying yourself into a giant rat's nest of endless money pit. Back in the day, they were pretty well-made cars. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.